All right, hello YouTube. We're going to get right back into it today with another tying video. Today we're going to be tying a scud. This is a really important pattern for me on one of my favorite streams out in central PA, where scuds and crest bugs are just food sources all throughout the year. So I always make sure I have these in my box. I like to make these really super simple. You're going to see lots of scud patterns out there that look much more realistic than this one, but I find that realism isn't really what the trout are looking for when it comes to scuds. They are so abundant in the water system that I really find that just kind of getting the size and then the color is the main thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. We have a curved hook in the vise today with a 2.4 tungsten bead that is round, not slotted. Again, the bead color doesn't really seem to matter. I used to tie these with a white bead, which seems to work well. I did have some green beads. I have some silver. So I'm always trying to tie with what I have just to keep it a little bit more economical. So we'll get started. I'm going to be using a thread today, 70 in Denier, in olive rather, 70 Denier in olive. And I'm just going to get started wrapping that down the shank of the hook. Now my first tendency is to want to snap this tag off when I'm done. I'm going to resist the urge to do that because I'm going to actually use that tag today for my ribbing. Again, trying to use the materials that I have. All right, the second thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to use some of the pearl tinsel that I have for tying rainbow warriors. I'm going to use that as the shell backing. There are lots of different materials that you can use for shell backing. I would say really anything that you have will work fine. A lot of people like their shell backing to be clear. You can cut off strips of a Ziploc bag if you want. But I'm going to use some of this tinsel that I use again for my rainbow warriors. Now this is the large size on it, so I'm going to tie the the tinsel in. As you can see, I've cut it on an angle. That just makes it a little bit easier to tie in, and just tuck that in there behind the bead, do a loose wrap, and then just bring that down all the way down the end of the hook. Okay. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Scud dubbing, and this is the olive color. A bunch of different colors of this, but for this particular scud, I do like to use the olive. That's just what I've had success on, but there's lots of different colors. I know people use pink. You can even do this with the rainbow scud that I use for the rainbow warrior. Sometimes I think the rainbow warrior may be taken as a scud. But anyway, I'm going to use the green here, and I'm just going to do a dubbing loop, or I'm sorry, a dubbing noodle, not a loop. You don't need to do, you can certainly do a loop if you want for this, but I'm trying to pump out a bunch of these and do them quick, so I'm not going to worry too much about doing a dubbing loop. I'm just going to do a simple dubbing noodle, and then I'm going to wrap that up the bend of the hook. And we're going to just pinch more there. Back in. Okay. Now, for the next part, I'm going to turn the vise this way so you can see. I'm going to just use the shell backing, and as I pull with my right hand, use my left hand to kind of capture that shell backing where I want it, and then I'm going to lock it in with 2 tight turns. I'm going to fold it back, and I'm going to do 2 more tight turns, and then I'm good to go. I can cut it off from there. All right, so I'm going to just take my scissors. I'm just going to take a tiny little nick out of that and then pull the rest. All right, and then I'm going to hang my bobbin on the cradle. I'm going to take my tag piece of thread, and now I'm just going to use my rotary function. I'm going to slowly rib this fly with my thread, and it's gonna reinforce the shell backing on there. It's going to strengthen the fly. It's also going to give that segmented look. All right, and then I just tie this off, wind my bobbin back up, tie this back off once, twice, and all right, use my bodkin just to kind of pick it out a little bit. If you have a dubbing brush, you can use a dubbing brush. I kind of just like to pick at it a little bit. And again, I don't get super fussy with these. I really, I just think that little green blob coming down has the silhouette of a food source that the fish are really, really accustomed to seeing. And they see it all times a year. But just, you know, if you get in there with that, you can kind of see. And then if you really want to get artsy fartsy, you can kind of give it a haircut, but just to keep it even. But again, I don't get real concerned about the realism. Some Scud patterns you see, they have the hackle coming out the front, and then the tail, and I've seen some really neat looking ones that seem to be really just realistic. Again, realism is not my goal here. Effective, simple pattern. This is just a few materials: Scud dubbing, some shell backing, and some olive thread is really all you need to do this. So again, tie a bunch of these up. 18 is my size. I'll tie them down in a 20. I don't go really above that, just based on where I fish. So I do try to keep these small. So I hope you enjoyed this one. A little bit different type of a pattern, but a really effective one. And tie these up, get them in your box, and see you out on the water.